Alright, we're back again. We are going to put together this Gull ST-36. I'm assuming that is a 36 millimeter movement, but it is rather large. I went over this just looking at various parts with a loop, checking it out. I can't find any lubrication on this anywhere. So I did lubricate some parts, and we're just going to start putting this back together. Why a timepiece would not have lubrication, I can only guess. To save costs, obviously. If I did find some lubrication, it was minimal. So I shouldn't say there was none whatsoever. Just very minimal. Quality of the parts, they look shiny. They look like they should be quality, but honestly they're not. It's a very thin movement as far as some parts go. This might, parts might look nice and shiny and clean, but there's no substance to it. That's all I'm saying. Where we just installed those 3 gears. There's no, parts are very flimsy. They may look nice and shiny and super clean and wow, that looks great, but I think it's function over form, or the other way around, form over function. They just want it to look good. Having said that, it does keep decent time, and it is a robust movement, so you can't take that away. Okay, we just installed that lever. You can't take that away from the makers. Tolerances are very loose. Just sloppy, loose screws. Machining between screws and threads. Very, very loose. Gears and posts and staffs, just very loose. Now, there's a lot to be said about that. Look at the AK-47. Very loosely put together, very sloppy, but it doesn't jam. It just goes and goes and goes. You could run thousands and thousands of rounds through an AK-47 before you have any problems. Take a Colt AR-15, the 223 NATO round, get that nice and gummed up from many rounds, and it's not going to perform. It's gonna jam. You're going to have problems. So it's a trade-off. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, don't expect super high quality parts, super hard materials. We're going to pop that spring in there. It is what it is. I just call it like it is. Nonetheless, fun to work on, easy to work on. Big, nice big parts and movement pieces. Okay, there's that. Back in there. If you want to learn watch servicing, pick one of these giants up. Oh, I shouldn't say pick up one of these giants. There you go. That's the proper English. I don't know. I'm not an English teacher. Okay. This plate, for example, nice and clean and shiny and looks great, but boy is it flimsy. You don't want to put too much pressure on that before it will bend out of shape. But it looks clean and shiny. It's it's got that look. Where's my screw? Here it is. So in regard to the dial being held on with adhesive, it has dial feet, but there's no attempt made to utilize the screws that are next to the dial feet to lock them in. They don't do anything. I don't think that screw goes there. They don't do anything, those screws, honestly. It's for a look. But it does not go there. To use adhesive, like a double-backed adhesive, or some kind of rubber cement, I don't know. that rubs me the wrong way. There you go. It's a flathead screw, dummy. So I do have a little issue with that. Retail, these are going for $300. I can't imagine somebody putting out that kind of money for something this cheaply made. And of course it's cheaply made, that's the whole point. You know, am I expecting Swiss quality? No, absolutely not. But I was expecting something better or close to Soviet or Russian. Doesn't even come close. I'm going to snap that. Is that in the thing? There it is. It doesn't even come close. I've been servicing Soviet and Russian timepieces for quite some time. Okay, here we go. Everything's working good there. You can see how the keyless system works. There we go. Not putting it down, just calling it like it is. The mainspring and the mainspring barrel is so tightly pressed together, I can't get it apart. I can't get the mainspring out without fear of damaging something getting it apart. So I'm not even going to attempt it. These so-called eccentrics, the dial feet pop through that hole, and these rotate to engage the dial feet. Well, they do nothing. They, if anything, the dial feet line it up, and that's it. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start putting this together. We're going to go in with our mainspring barrel, mainspring assembly, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Next we have just going to be a gear coming off of that. Don't ask me what it's called, because I probably don't know. Is it in the shot? I'm sure everybody knows what they're called, or, you know, can tell me, but it just doesn't matter. If I know where it goes, it doesn't matter what it's called. I just know how to put it together. Okay. Maybe this should have gone first. Yeah, let's do that. Big pieces. Huge. Good Lord. There we go. So if you see the way that's driven, you have a big gear driving a small gear, which is attached to a big gear that drives a small gear, which is attached to a big gear which drives a small gear. And then that eventually is going to end up meshing with the escape wheel. I think on my disassembly I called that the balance or something. I reviewed the video later. I called it something different. I do know that's an escape wheel. Okay. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pivots where that mainspring bridge is going to engage all those pivot points. So that's going to be next. We're going to put our mainspring bridge on. I'm just going to put a little grease on the arbor there, and we'll grease the jewels later. Yeah, fun movement to work on. So I'll give it that. To learn, absolutely. Learn on one of these, learn on something. Sure, they're great for that. Okay, that plate landed on there very nicely. Now you can see, laying on a bridge with 4 contact points through a jewel. I don't know if many people have service watches or what crowd I'm talking to, but the more precise the fit between those jewels and those pivots, the longer it takes to line them up. I've struggled with some serious precision fit parts on Soviet and Russian timepieces, where it was, it took some time to manipulate everything, get it all lined up, and have that bridge fall into place and have the train running nice. This, because those tolerances are so loose, it's like we used to say in the car business, it's idiot proof, dummy proof. That's not to say that you're a dummy, but very forgiving, I'll say. Tolerances are very loose, very forgiving. Not a bad thing. Like I said, the AK-47 performs well because of its loose tolerances. But you sacrifice accuracy. Well, when you're shooting something like an AK and it's fully auto, you're not worried about accuracy. You're not a one shot, 1 kill at 1,000 yards. Okay, now our main spring bridge is on and tightened, and we're just going to give the we're just going to touch that. We're going to set our stem to setting the hand, and I just barely touch that, and that train moves along nicely. So that is a good sign. I am going to put a little oil on these, oil, grease, whatever you want to call it, and need a different oiler, and ensure that this has proper lubrication. I'm almost positive this would run quite a long time with no lubrication because those tolerances are so loose. Eventually things would wear out, of course, but it's just very forgiving, extremely forgiving. Okay, moving right along. Fun to work on, easy to work on. A good way to build up your confidence, manipulating parts, what have you. Once you get the basics down, the easy stuff, then you can move on to your more precision, more precise works, and turn a hobby into something you really like. Tinkering with mechanical watches and moving into something different. Maybe there are Chinese movements that are slick and perform well and machined well, and you name it. Maybe they're out there. I don't know. Could be. Okay, let's put in our crown gear. This is my first Chinese movement, and servicing one, taking it apart, tinkering with it. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on that. I call it grease, call it oil, call it grease, call it schmutz, call it what you want. And with the forgiving tolerances, if you're a little heavy-handed with your oiler, I don't think it's going to matter. Get a little heavy right there. We'll hit that with some Rotico, clean that off. Don't think it'll matter. It'll still perform splendidly. These are very tiny screws. These screws are so forgiving. They just go in nicely. Of course, I got some magnetism on that. Now, if you go over to the Russian watch forum, in the article section, I have a few videos posted servicing Soviet and Russian watch movements, and I'm always updating those or putting new ones up. Check them out. I'll post this on the Chinese watch forum. Are we in the shot? Yeah. I'm just putting those in a little bit at a time before I tighten them all up I'm just going to get them threaded in. Are we in focus? And then that ensures everything's lined up, so I can tighten them up one by one. Okay, there's one. The quality of the screws and the slots in the screws is, let's see, has a little bit to be desired. But that's okay. It's not trying to be something it's not. Let's take some Rotocoat to that. Clean off some of that excess grease. Okay, there we go. There's our winder there. Oops, I put that on upside down. See, we did our fake screws up. Those are not real screws. They are fake. They are decorative. The only real one is in the middle. If I can get this to line up. There we go. The screwdriver slots in a lot of these are not very deep. Quite shallow even. It's good to have a nice, sharp, finely tuned, finely machined, or whatever you want to call it, screwdriver. You don't want it slipping out or twisting it. You name it. Okay, there we go. Looks nice. There's my blower. Get some dust off just in case. Now, pallet fork. We're going to do the pallet fork next. Actually, let's do this first. Let's put a little oil on those stones. On the exit stone, entrance stone. I don't know what they're called. I just call them that. Okay. Let's get it in the shot, people. Maybe I need a drink. Okay. I might break this down into two parts just to keep things short. Okay. I put the pallet fork in so it's sitting in its lower jewel. Bring the bridge over. Line it up as best you can. Lay it in there. Give it a tap. Give it a nudge. Give it a feel. You'll know when it's in. You'll see the shaft poke through the jewel. If you look closely right there, you can see the shaft poking through that jewel. We don't tighten these right away. We're going to just get these started. Just barely tighten them. I'm not putting any pressure on that if it's not properly installed. If that fork is off the littlest bit, I don't want to put any pressure on it until I test it. And it's easy enough to test. I'm going to take the tail end of this pallet fork. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up and move it back and forth and feel for any slop. I'm going to turn it over, look at that other jewel. It looks good. It's level. And the last thing I'll do is tighten these. Let's get in the shot. Tighten those up. Double check our, okay, that's nice and loose. And we're going to put a few clicks into this. We're going to wind this up a little bit, okay? Steady. And we're going to test it. When I nudge that pallet fork, it'll snap one side to the other. You don't have to really move it, just let the train take it the way it's supposed to. That lets me know everything is working good. So we're going to stop this now because it's 20 minutes, and then we'll do the next one and do the final assembly.